Hey everyone, welcome to Dave and Joe Liberty Stand, which thank God I'm the one to intro the show because I'm the only one that says it correctly. Anyway, Joe came up with another great topic of conversation tonight.
You're so kind.
So he's going to take it away and let us in.
Okay. Well, and I'm going to need a lot of help from this guy right here. Not Stanley, but
he has little to say.
I was pointing at Stanley, I think. Well, no, I was just listening to the big news last week,
Saturday.
Yeah, was the death of the Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court. And so Janet Parshall was talking about it tonight.
Who is from?
She's from Moody Radio, in the market with Janet Parshall. And she talks about the topics of the day, things that are going on. And anyway, she was talking about there's two ways to interpret, there's two ways to interpret the Constitution. One would be, I wrote that down, the original intent. Okay, that's what the terminology was. The original intent of the Constitution and how the founders kind of developed it or wrote it, that kind of thing, versus the other view. And these are talking about your Supreme Court justices. So he looked at the Constitution based on, what it was originally intended, how it was written, where the other people or other justices on the court are looking at it, kind of applying their own interpretation, into what I know. I just slobbered all over. But how they're interpreting it out of what current day perspective, I guess, and saying that it's the document is because it's old that it has to be looked at from different ways. And I want to say before I hand it over to Dave is that's the same thing we do with the scriptures today. Some people will say, well, the scripture was written back at that time, so it was a different time and era, and now we're new thinkers. Progressive, I think, would be another word. So what can you say about how Scalia applied and the different sides, I guess? Can you help?
Yeah, first of all, this guy was great. If you don't know very much about him, or you just sort of know who he was or the way he voted, go to YouTube or go to somewhere and look him up in interviews. And he was a fun, hilarious guy, and he was a great guy. And anyway, what he's known as a textist, and what that means is, okay, when something comes to the Supreme Court, it's being argued that there's something in some law or something, some legislation that's been passed that says no, it can't be passed because even though it was passed, it can't be law because it's unconstitutional. And like Joe said, a lot of people, way too many people on the Supreme Court, well, the Constitution is subjective to this or that or time and the times and all that. No, it is not. The values and principles in that Constitution are the same. I don't care what technology's done. And if you look back at Scalia interviews, he will tell you about that. I'll give you a quick example because I know we're on a time limit, but I saw one clip of him where he was telling the interviewer, like when the Supreme Court had to hear about electrocution, the electric chair, as a means of execution. Was that a cruel and unusual punishment? He said, now in the old days, he said, we've always had, as a nation, up until that time, it was always legal to execute someone if the crime was heinous enough and people ruled it that you could get the death penalty. We always had that. Mm-hmm. He said, but up until that time, there was just hanging. And he said, well, what they had to do was determine, is the electric chair, is that less humane than if you were hanged? and that's what you had. You had to study the facts about the electric chair,
Okay.
how fast
Okay.
it worked, what it did, compared to if someone was hanging. And you figure that out, and then you make your decision, and that's how that passes or not. So what you do is, and this is Scalia's thinking, okay? So when he gets, but because there was nothing to go, that's when there's nothing to go on. You just have to, to read the science studies about the execution with the electronic chair compared to if you drop through a chute,
Right.
hang. Now, but he said, everything else, legislation that they say, well, you can't pass this bill because this isn't constitutional to put on the American people. Well, and there's certain sections. It's never the whole thing. It's always certain sections of it.
Of the Constitution that they're looking
And
at.
there's certain parts that are
Or the
challenged.
law.
So he takes the challenged parts and he reads the text of that, and he compares the text of that to the text in the Constitution. He looks that part up, wherever that's at in there. Okay, what does this say? Is the law of the land, by the way, which is what the Constitution is the law of the land. And what does this new legislation say? And does this coincide with what is in the Constitution? And he makes his yay or nay vote on if he thinks it goes along with the writings of the original content of the Constitution. It's not what's the fancy of the day. What's the new trend?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. The new ideas.
Well, that's what fancy of the day means.
Yeah.
It's
No,
more
that's
of a
good.
British term, I guess. But yeah,
I didn't know you were British. Wow.
I know I like a lot
That's
of British rock
amazing.
band, Rolling Stones.
But so, and that means
Roster.
it's like fluid. It's like things can.
Yeah, but they're not.
Be this way.
There's nothing
No,
fluid about
no,
it. It's
there's
as
not.
solid as, hold that up. It's as solid as that is because it came from that. It is a set of values and principles. You shall not waver from
Usually
that
I'm-
if you want to be if you want to be solid and straight, and if you want to be great. Wow, did I just do a rap there?
Solid, straight, want to be great.
But
Yeah, that's good.
that was unintentional, I swear.
You could do that if you wanted to.
Didn't.
Well, so ultimately, what we're saying is it's kind of. I mean, what I'm hearing is it's kind of shaky ground when you have someone who's deciding things based on how they feel of the day. It's kind of like the feelings. You're basing facts on feelings versus basing facts on truth.
You're not a poker player, are you?
No, not really. I mean, I've played some cards before.
I'm a poker player.
Okay.
And for money, okay? If I go to somebody's home who's hosting a poker party,
Right.
and I get my seat and I get my beverage and I get my money out and I'm ready
His
to
water.
go.
He plays with water.
And the guy, yeah, as we can all see. And the host of the party says, I just want you to know that the rules of tonight's poker party are living and breathing rules where,
They're fluid. They can change.
I'm going to drink my beverage and put my money back in my money bag, and I'm going to go away now. that there's no stability there. There's no solid
and
right
that's
or
where
wrong.
we are.
And that's where
It
we're
is.
at as a country. You would never play poker with somebody like that. Why do you want to live in a country where laws are subjective to the day we have to have
Right.
a solid value and principle based system, which we do have.
Yeah.
By the way,
But we kind of
do
ignore
have.
it.
We've just ignored it, and
Right.
nobody cared. Nobody says anything. And again, it goes back to the fact that kids don't know about it. It's because they're in the education system, and they, on purpose, have systematically
I mean, yeah.
not taught the
I
kids
could say growing
about
up,
about.
it wasn't, to me, it wasn't implied as such a foundational part that we should really know. Because the thing is, like you said, if they know about it, they're going to stand up against the
Right,
tyrannical
and there's
powers,
no way
and
they
don't-
want to.
Yeah.
Why do you think? Okay, why do
Right.
you guys think Bernie Sanders is such a sensation with the millennials and stuff?
Because he's talking their language, probably, right?
And why is he talking their language?
Because that's how they've been
That's
schooled.
how they've been schooled.
Wow. I'm learning
Yeah.
here, folks.
That's. I mean, it's our not my fault because I've never voted that way, but our fault as a nation, our fault as a whole, our as a majority of people that's voted for these people to do these things, and for us to not. It's a sin for us not to pay attention to the people that rule over us. And we lost a giant with Scalia. He was the best. I mean, we still have Judge Thomas, thank God, and a couple others. But I mean, that's
Pray for our leadership and our judges and
the people that will appoint them. TedCruz.org, TedCruz.org.
I will say it again. You guys, we're gonna wrap this
TedCruz.org.
up. You feel pretty comfortable? Do you feel like the president was?
Not for about 7 or 8 years now, but
Well, well, that's another show.
we'll
You
see y'all
guys,
later.
God bless you. Thanks so much for tuning in.